You're listening to the Our Erie podcast with Lydia Lath,
Ivana Paisley,
and Marty Wachugu.
This series will bring citizens, entrepreneurs, activists, politicians, artists, and thought leaders to the table for a frank discussion around societal issues facing our post-industrial city and the United States at large. Take a seat.
Hello, welcome back to Our Erie and Happy New Year. I don't think we said that in the last episode. I hope you all got some time to rest during the holidays, and I hope you're feeling rejuvenated in spite of what went on this week or last week if you're listening to this on Tuesday. So today we're just going to have a full episode of chit chat and catching up, but we have a guest with us. Right now it's Marty speaking and Devon and Lydia are here, but we want to introduce Dr. Rhonda Matthews, professor of politics at Edinburgh University.
Hello.
Woo! So I'm actually going to pass it over to Devon to lead the conversation from here.
Oh, this is such an honor. All right. I'm so geeked up to have Dr. Matthews on here because Dr. Matthews and I go way back. She was one of my professors for sociology. She's actually the one that expanded my mind. I changed my major to go to sociology from social work. So I'm so honored today to have you on here, Dr. Matthews, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life. So it's nice to have this conversation with you, and we'll just start off with you introducing yourself and let us know what's up.
Well, thank you all for inviting me. I really appreciate it. For the audience, just so y'all know, I know all three of these young women. They are powerhouses in their own right. And I'm so glad that you thought enough about me and my work to invite me to come and have a chat with you. So let's see. When people ask me to introduce myself, I always hesitate because I'm like, well, which part should I share? So I am, as you said, a professor of politics, at least for right now, at Edinburgh University. And I have been teaching for well past 30 years now. I'm originally from Los Angeles. I was born my brothers and I were born in Los Angeles, California. And my dad worked, he wasn't in the military when we were kids, but he worked on military bases. So we moved a lot. But we finally wound up when I was about 16 in Mississippi. And so a lot of my life, it was in California, but a lot more of my life has been rooted in the South. But we've been in Erie in this area for about 26 years now. So this is really my home. This is the longest I've ever lived in one place. So I call Erie home now. Beyond that, let's see. I have a spouse. We have a daughter. So my spouse is an administrator, a higher ed administrator. Our daughter is a college student. She goes to school in New Orleans. We don't have any pets because pets don't grow up and go to college and leave your house. So
I feel that.
So I think that's just about it. I'm a lifelong geek. Oh my God, I'm a lifelong geek, lifelong nerd. And so, I've carried that with me throughout my whole life. And actually that kind of infuses just about everything that I do. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
So the Capitol was stormed. It'll be last week by the time people are listening to this. Rhonda, I feel like I come to you as an adult now because I've also come to you as a child and known you since my memory has begun because you knew my dad. But as an adult, I come to you sometimes when we're trying to make sense of things or just understand like Devonna said, reframe it. How does this make sense? How do we and I probably would go to my dad in the same way if he were still around. But like, how do you make sense of this? How do you look at the situation and say, A, I'm not going to freak out. B, like we can deal with this either A, because we've done it before in the past, or because like we have these tools at our disposal. But like people stormed the Capitol, and like I saw people like that they had like handcuff things that like it looked like they were ready to restrain members of Congress. What was your reaction? But B, like, how do we deal with this information now as like sane citizens in the United States?
Oh, okay. So I was actually at my office. I went there because I needed to just sit at my desk and do some work, and I had some meetings. So I had meetings until I think the last meeting ended at 3:15, and of course I was aware of the time because I knew that they started the certification at noon. So as soon as I was off, I immediately go to the New York Times app on my phone, and I see what's happening. And so I immediately start opening up other windows and looking for stuff, and there it was, right? So my immediate response was, oh my God, right? I got to get home. That was my first response was, I got to get home before it gets dark. I have to put gas in the car. I have to make sure we have cash in the house. That was honest to God. Those were my first thoughts, was to get to safety. Because if you remember the day before, or 2 days before, Pennsylvania, the senators in the Pennsylvania State House had basically done the same thing. They had John Fetterman, they had the lieutenant governor escorted out, right? They refused to accept the election win of a man who had won and was becoming a Democratic senator. He was there to be sworn in. They had done the same thing. So that had my antenna up, and then that happened. So I was like, okay, so this is going to start everywhere else. So that was my first response. And then so I got home, did all those things, got home, and proceeded to watch. And so as I was watching it, I think my responses were the same as a lot of people's, but different in some ways. So I was not surprised. I was not surprised. 4 years ago, when after Hillary Clinton conceded the election, I had classes. I had a full day of classes on Wednesday, and students wanted to talk about it, and I couldn't. I just couldn't. And I told them that. I said, look, y'all, I can't talk to you about that today. Let me just do my regular, lecture. Let's have discussion about this topic that we're on now. I'll be ready to talk about it later. So then on Friday, came back and so I said, okay, we can talk about it now. So what questions do you have? And I let them, ask me different questions about procedure and about, the polling and all of that stuff. And then a student said, what do you think is going to happen? And so I spent about 20 minutes gaming it out, because this is the way my brain works, right? I spent about 20 minutes gaming out what was going to happen. I predicted, he's going to come in and he's going to begin with racist policies that are for the most part, they're not going to hold up, because, we've got these laws and stuff. I said, but you've got to think about the fact that, that Mitch McConnell spent all of his time, making sure that these judicial seats were open. I said, he's going to throw those in there. I said, we have to worry about the Supreme Court. I mean, it was just an arm's long list of things that would happen. And last year, a student who was in one of those classes came to me. And by the way, the last two things I said was, I think that that people will be tired of this by the time that the next election comes around. I said, I think he'll be, it'll be clear that he's going to lose and he'll start a war, so that because we rarely switch presidents in times of war. I said, or he'll find a way to declare martial law. So a student came to my office one day last year who was in one of those classes that day. And he stuck his head in the door and he said, Dr. Matthews, I just want to tell you that I think about this often. Almost everything that you said that day has come to pass, right? The only things that have not come to pass so far is that he's not gotten us into a war yet, because I'm not sure that he won't attempt it, and has not declared martial law. So the first thing I thought when I got home and I was like, okay, so I'm safe now, is look at what's happening with the Capitol Police, and there's no National Guard here, all that. This is going to get out of hand, and he's going to be able to declare martial law, right? He's going to be able to say the military has to come in here and kind of rein all the violence in. When martial law is declared, habeas corpus is suspended, right? So everything stops when martial law is declared. Everything stops. So my concern was then, okay, if we can make it to the 20th, right? Because people are like, well, what? Joe Biden is powerless at this moment. He, except for the powers of persuasion, he has no institutional power at this point whatsoever. So, I was, justifiably keyed up about it. So I had that response, the fear for our safety. But the other thing that made me very, very emotional, and I couldn't put words into it, and a friend asked me to call her because she was having a hard time. And what she said was, they shit in my church. And that's it. I have, even as a Black woman in this country, not just the way I think about things, but the things that I've studied, the subjects I've studied have made me have great reverence for our systems of politics and governance, not because they were built for me, but because through those systems, we can actually reach those ideals, right? The way that this system is structured, it's set up for us to achieve equality and justice. It's set up that way. And I've always put my faith in the potential of this country, not on its promise, not the things that it's promised, but the potential that the systems give to us. And that's one of the places, right? Like, it's there that we can achieve justice. And the well of Congress is a place where we can achieve justice. It's a place where we can find parity, right? We can create that as humans. And that's how I felt. I felt like they walked in and shat in the most sacred of places for me. And they weren't even fucking serious, right? That, like, there were people there who really didn't give a fuck about any of those things. They didn't care about justice. They didn't care about what was right. They just wanted to do violence because they were mad that other people might get something, right? That other people might get justice. Other people might get parity and equality. Other people might be able, to achieve the potential that these systems offer to us. And I still feel that way, that all those people who voted for Donald Trump, all those people who went in there and were threatening violence, and they were seriously looking. We know this now, that they were some of them actually were there to find members of Congress. There was a report today, a reporter said that he heard no less than 3 people who were not together at 3 different times ask the Capitol Police for the location of Mike Pence so that they could execute him. So my response is that what we have here is a person who has sat in this office for 4 years and dredged up the worst possible in this country, the things that brought us the genocide of indigenous people, the things that that brought us slavery, the things that passed laws against people who immigrated to this country so they couldn't own land or they couldn't marry, outside of their ethnic group. The people who justify rape on a daily basis, the people who don't protect children, the people who think that bread lines are fucking okay. All of those people were saying, and we want to continue to do that. And they have a leader, right? They have a leader in the worst of humankind, right? Who is sitting in the seat of the presidency. So when I think about what happened this week, that really is my primary thought. And what I'm hoping, because I think that we are going to see it now, I feel a little bit more hopeful now that we will make it to the 20th. But I'm telling you, on Wednesday, I didn't know that we would. I didn't know that we would. And it just makes me want to fight harder, I think, to engage, to continue to engage in political participation so that those motherfuckers don't win.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so powerful.
I know that you're hopeful. I still feel skepticism because I'm scared that we still have I really, in my heart of hearts, I feel that there's still some lingering around of.
Oh, it's always been there. It always has been.
Yes. Even after this Capitol situation, I think that I feel that there's going to still be some, I don't know.
Let me tell you the thing that makes me most hopeful is that white people see it now.
Yeah.
White people see it now. And I have had lots of interaction with lots of white people over the years, and I've talked to them about the subtle indignities, the daily subtle indignities and injustices of being Black in this country. And they listen to me, and they like me or they love me, depending on what our relationship is like, whether they're good friends or whether they're just, kind of colleagues or whatever. But they care about me and they listen to me and they're like, yeah, but you can tell they're like, really? Because that sounds crazy, and that doesn't sound real, because the shit that we have to deal with on a regular basis should be fucking fiction. It should. It sounds like fiction. It should be fiction, but it's not. And now they're seeing it. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is going to make the difference. I really do. I know that there are a lot of white people who feel guilt and shame, and I think that shit's wasted. I think that is a wasted, those are wasted emotions. On a good day, those are wasted emotions. But white supremacy has constructed this society so that white people never had to see our suffering.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Absolutely.
They never had to see our suffering, right? They don't have to know anything about us. They never had to see the shit that we go through on a regular basis. When there were these broad discussions about the talk that we have with our kids, a whole lot of white people are like, what? Why would you need to do that? That's just a regular part of what we do, right? Because that's how you survive. Mm-hmm. It's how you attempt to survive in this nation. And so that's one of the things that I think is different, because white people are mad, and they're not just mad at the injustice that occurs to Black and Indigenous and trans and gay and lesbian and, all of that. It's not just that. It is that y'all fucking hid this shit from us, so you made me complicit when I didn't want to be complicit. And I think that's one of the things that makes me hopeful.
I agree, because I think that we all should be mad at racism, because racism doesn't affect us, Black folk. It does affect everyone.
All of us.
I agree.
It absolutely does.
So when I first saw them storming the Capitol, and y'all were the ones who let me know, I was working, I didn't see it happening. I thought, okay, well, this is ridiculous, but nothing's going to go far. But at the same time, when a friend called me, I talked to her about getting a gun license because if they were able to do that in the US Capitol, one of the most protected and over policed places in the world, who was to say that after, like you said, Dr. Matthews, the day before, the Republicans did like a kind of legislative coup, you know? What was going to stop them from doing the same thing in my area? I didn't hope for the worst, but I'm like, okay, this country is wild. We have a lot of violent, dangerous, bloody history. Maybe I should be prepared. And I totally understand people who are pro-gun. I understand different things, but I've never personally felt that I needed one. But throughout this administration, many times I have thought about getting one, but no other time than Wednesday. It was like, okay, I might actually this week go go do the thing I need to do to go get one, because I don't trust this country to protect me.
Yeah, well, it's shown that it won't. Right. A few months ago, my younger, I have two younger brothers. So I have a younger and a youngest brother. So my younger brother and I were talking, and he said to me, Rhonda, you need to go buy a gun. You know, and so we talked about it, and I never thought, I've never wanted a gun, you know, in my house. I just have never wanted one. You know, we were raised around guns. We know how to use them safely. Well, we know how to use shotguns and rifles safely, you know, for hunting and stuff. So we know, you know, we're familiar, and we're not afraid of guns, and we're not those kind of people who will just whip out a gun if, you know, somebody steps on your shoe or anything like that. But he said, you need to get a gun. And he's not the only person. A good friend of mine, you know, I've known for well over 25 years, who is a white man, had several conversations. He had a conversation. He's been having conversations with me about getting a gun for a year. You need to get a gun. And one of the things he said that finally made me relent was, he said, Rhonda, he said, you know that most white people really don't know their own people. Like, a whole lot of people were very shocked that they had family members who voted for Trump, and they couldn't understand it. He said, so, you know, a lot of white people don't know their own people. He said, and you know that I do. And I'm telling you, you need to get a gun. Right. And so these are people who love and care about me, you know, who were saying, I know that what you thought about in the past, but maybe you need to reconsider that in this moment. And so I listened to them, you know, and you know, I think they're right. And I hope that I never have to use the gun that I purchased, but they were right. I purchased a gun, right? And am being trained on it, on how to use it, because of what we saw on Wednesday. And the reason, so Lydia, you asked me what my first response was, and my first response was get to safety. That's why. Because as long as white supremacy allows people to commit violence against the bodies of oppressed people, none of us is ever going to be safe, right? You know, Lydia, you had a brush with this when you guys did the Black Lives Matter protest, right? In Edinburgh. So yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to say about it, except that I'm disappointed that I had to, but what we saw on Wednesday was yet another indication that they are not going to protect us. You know, everybody, y'all can probably say this with me in unison. If that had been Black Lives Matter protesters, they would still be killing Black people today.
Yes.
It would have been a massacre.
Hands down.
Would have been. In fact, they would have shown up. You know, if you recall, everybody recalls that during this whole last year, whenever there's been a Black Lives Matter protest, police are there before the protesters are even there, in riot gear, right? Like nobody in the police department gets a day off. Y'all all got to be there, and they're pepper spraying. I mean, it happened. Yeah, it happened here, right? So I think it's a natural response to first think fear and then protection.
I felt like watching that, and that's why I'm with Devonna. I'm skeptical and still scared because I don't trust Democratic leadership to really hold these people accountable. And these people will just continue festering over the next 4 years. And
You're
then
not
we'll elect another crazy person. Because that Wednesday was the beginning of worse things if we don't actually seriously address
It
the sickness
absolutely
in our
was.
country.
Facts.
But you're not supposed to trust. You're not supposed to trust. This is why we got here. You're not supposed to trust the people that you elect to go there and do the right thing. You're not. You're supposed to do what your parents did to you when you were still forming, right? Which is, I'm going to tell you what to do, and then I'm going to check up on you to make sure you did it. Did you take out the trash, Marty? Did you wash the dishes, Lydia? Did you look after your brother, Devonna? I mean, that's what we have to do for legislators. You don't send them to Washington or to the state house or to the mayor's office or to city council and then just sit and see what happens. No, you show up, you read the paper, you write, you call them out. That is the only way. If you let people people who sit in positions of power, if you let them know that you're not watching, they're gonna fucking steal from you. Right. And that's what Donald Trump has done these whole 4 years. He's stolen from us. I mean, when the history of this is written, it's going to be so much worse than we think it is.
Well,
we don't know it all.
hopefully they write this in the history books as in not watering it down.
Listen,
They're about to.
Merrick Garland better be ready.
For real.
He better be ready, because I'm gonna be writing him on a regular basis. Hey.
Right.
Have you brought charges against the Trumps yet? Which ones are you filing? I know that the president said you're going to leave him, he's going to let you do your work, but are you doing your work? That's what we have to do. So I don't trust any of them to do it. It's my job to make sure that they do those things.
I agree. And I think that attitude and that what we do and that accountability really does start at the local level. And that's why I really applaud us too. I mean, I'm going to tap our backs, because I think it's important to let people know that at the local level, we must hold our politicians accountable, and we have to go to these meetings and we have to educate each other, because I think that that's the only way we're going to have to be able to get shit done, because we can't just assume, okay, well, you're in this position and now we should, you should do what you say you were going to do. I mean, that's about Michael Keyes, right? And I feel like we have to keep being on him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's what especially as, we as Erie County United supported that person. So that's why we just got to keep holding that person accountable. And I think that's starts at a local. That way, then it can spread to the next.
And look, it's work, right? I mean, it's work. Some days you get home and you just want to pop a bowl of popcorn, have 4 fingers of whiskey and watch Bridgerton, right? But the city council meeting is tonight, and I need to go. Right. I need to say something, or I need to tune in or so. I mean, but it does take work. But if we want the kind of country that we say we want, we have to show up. Right. We have to show up. And sometimes we have to show up even when we know people aren't listening. One of my favorite videos out of this year was I can't remember where she was. A young Black woman who went to a city council meeting, and she just went off. She read every single council member for filth. It just did my heart so much good.
They don't have the stupid rules we have here, though. She could say them directly. Right. Here they're telling you, you can't identify someone specifically.
But there are still ways, you can always find ways to do stuff. But my point is that she showed up. Right. Yes. She showed up, and she knew that it wasn't going to make a difference in their lives, but she wanted to be on record. And it took work for her to do that. And that's what she did. And so I think that's what we all, I don't think that's what we all have to do. That's how the system is designed.
Right. Yeah, right. Absolutely. And we don't have to do it alone too. That's the one thing. So I also felt terrified, given the context of having seen armed people in Edinburgh this fall and then seeing all that happen. And then also admittedly too, like to call out my privilege of the situation. Like I've been fighting racist gun violence and police brutality in every way that I possibly like can fathom in my daily life. But as I was taking a walk with Buster, as it like after I had watched 3 hours straight of news
Mhm.
coverage of the Capitol, I said, you know what? Shit. You can't trust police to show up and defend you. And I fucking knew that already because I've been
Mhm.
following all these incidents of police brutality, but for the
Right.
first, like truly for the first time. And I
Mm.
like, yeah, I mean, it's just a product of my identity and who I am and my placement in the world and all this. But like for the first time, I feel like I got a glimpse, a small, short, brief,
Mhm.
distant glimpse because it was happening in DC and it wasn't happening in my backyard or in my neighborhood. But I got a glimpse of what it was like to see an institution that's supposed to be there to defend you and protect you. And well, and yeah, I mean, for some of us, it was not created to defend or protect us. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Right.
guess I shouldn't
Right.
even say
I
that.
mean, some of the police gave directions.
They were like,
Right.
Nancy
come.
Pelosi's office. Yeah, it's around
Right.
the corner.
Right.
Here, can I take a selfie with you? Sure. I mean,
Right.
y'all.
Right. And so to see that, like my initial reaction was like, okay, we can't rely on that. And of course we can't
Mhm.
rely on that. Like I've known that, but like it solidified it. And I was like, yeah, you can't rely on that. The only people you can rely on are yourself, the people in your household, and your friends and family, like the people you
Mhm.
know and the people you do trust. And so it really reminded me again, like going back, we've talked about mutual aid and like building community coalitions and community
Mhm.
groups and organizing as a community is so important for 1,000 different reasons, but like for ensuring safety and like if something happened, I know I could call anyone
Mhm.
on this call right now and say like,
Mhm.
shit's hitting the fan, like we need help, like this is,
Mhm.
and that's who
Mhm.
we really need to rely on and mobilize around and support. And so when it comes to speaking at council meetings or needing support in any aspect of your life, like, yeah, our communities are so important. I think we've got disconnected from that, but there's so much
Yeah.
power in this and you don't have to do it alone. So don't feel like you have to go to the council meeting and identify every person on council and say it
Yeah.
all alone because you're not alone.
Mhm.
There's so many
Mhm.
people that, I mean, the council meeting that just recently happened last week, it was a perfect example. Tons of citizens showed up and basically reiterated what each person had said before that. Like there was so many people
Mhm.
there to stand together. And while it was all virtual, so they couldn't be there together, there was so much solidarity and so much community happening in that session.
Mhm. And it didn't because the outcome was not a good outcome, but it made a difference, and they heard that, and
Mhm.
and they saw it, they witnessed this, they witnessed it, and I can tell you right now they were rattled. I
Mhm.
know they were rattled.
Mhm.
But we have to be holding those people accountable because sometimes um we have to hold them accountable, right? Because sometimes the people who are in leadership are going to spur the wrong people on to do the wrong
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
So one of the things I was thinking about yesterday was so um and I guess it's just because I knew I was going to be here talking to y'all today, but it was prompted by another conversation. So one time, Lydia, your dad and we were in a classroom. I think it was for a presentation or something. I was talking, and he was joking around, and he said something to the students. He was joking around, and he said something to the students about, ask Dr. Matthews such and such, something that he knew that they wouldn't or couldn't ask me. And so we were all joking and we're laughing. And I looked at the students. I said, "Don't let this man get your ass beat." Right. And so, and so they all laughed. But one of the things I thought about yesterday was all these dumbass people. I
Mm.
said, I know what it was. It was what prompted me was the FBI making the call to people to send us whatever you
Mhm.
have, send it to us. And I was like,
You're the
these dumbass
FBI.
people. Yes, but no, but they wanted help. And so
Mhm.
here's the deal. My thought was, see, y'all let Donald Trump
Mhm.
and Josh Hawley and Lindsey Graham and all of these people who are safe, right? They are safe. They are rich,
Mhm.
safe, fat, greedy, and happy.
Mhm.
Y'all listen to them You storm the Capitol. Now there's pictures of you everywhere. I bet you after a while, every reporter, every photographer just started training their video cameras and their cameras on people's faces so they could start identifying people. They're going to find your asses and you're going to jail. And you might think you're going to go and pay a little bitty fine and they're going to be out of it. No, bitch, they are going to put your ass in jail for insurrection.
You've been listening to the Our Erie podcast, the voice of reason in the fog of post-industrial America. Next week, we'll be joined by some of our book club members who have read Black Indians with us. We'll be discussing the book and unpacking some of the new things we learned. Continue the conversation at facebook.com/Our Erie series. This podcast is produced by John C. Lyons, Marty Nwachuku, Devonna Paisley, and Lydia Lee. Funding provided by Erie Arts and Culture. Music by Corey Cook. We appreciate you for listening to the Our Erie podcast. Peace.